I'm uploading a brief video here in order to recommend Larissa Shepitko's 1971 feature, You and Me. As I'm occasionally discussing classics of world cinema directed by female filmmakers, Larissa Shepitko's name often comes up. She directed The Ascent, a fantastic film from 1977, Soviet war picture set during the Eastern Front of World War II. And I believe The Ascent was kind of an obvious choice, although I have seen... She has only a relatively small filmography, and I'd only seen one other of her films, which is this one, You and Me. And I remember thinking it was a very strong film, and I decided I would look at it again, we'd discuss it here today. Stronger than I remember. Cinematography is phenomenal. And you know who shot it? Let me just make sure I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I want to sound it out. Alexander Kniazinski, who shot Stalker from 1979, the Tarkovsky masterpiece, which it's actually a video of on this channel. And Kniazinski does not appear to have the largest filmography either. I'll just double check. Wikipedia, it's not very extensive, and 20 credits to cinematographer from 64 to 92. Okay, that's more prolific than I thought. Not extremely extensive either. Anyway, with You and Me, the other thing I wanted to mention that's extraordinarily strong about You and Me is Alfred Schnicker's score. Phenomenal. I'm just reading about him now. I don't know much about him. Russian composer, Jewish-German descent, among the most performed and recorded composers of late 20th century classical music. I wonder, was this original music he composed for the film, or were they utilising some of his recorded works? I'm not sure. Recordings of his compositions. Who knows? I'd like to read out some reviews of You and Me from IMDb. There's only 4 of them, so I figured, hey, why the heck not? And also, I like reading older perspectives on the film, as I stated in an earlier review. I think it was from Nicholas Yancho's The Roundup, wherein I like people giving reviews of films in a time wherein these films had to be viewed via a DVD or a screening, or, more primitive means prior to DVD meaning, and I find it, it's not as interesting to hear people, which makes me wonder why anyone listens to this channel, who they've seen the film via access to the internet. Any film can be accessed via the internet, and it's just, it's almost a who cares about it. Although, for those of back when the internet was a place you went to, a room in your house, or a place in a room in your home, and then the outside still existed. It was a distinct place from the internet. That doesn't exist anymore. Now the two worlds have merged, and I'm fascinated by what You and Me would have felt like at a time when the world still existed outside, and not just in the 4 corners of our computer screens. It wasn't quite there yet. It wasn't quite there yet in 2005. Magus 9, 7 out of 10. Rambling but eventually effective. Shepitko's The Ascent is one of my favourite films, so I was really looking forward to this. It didn't surprise me that it's not as good as The Ascent, few films are, but it was only really towards the end that I can say that I really appreciated the film. There is a fractured narrative that at times is intriguing, and at others merely feels obscurantist and prone to rather uninteresting diversions. However, there are some excellent scenes throughout the film, and overall the film has an attractive character to it, so it's no chore to stay with its ramblings, and in the end the story comes together in an atmospheric and morally forceful conclusion. Like The Ascent, You and Me is blessed by a wonderful score by Schnittke. Yes. Okay, so the wonderful music in The Ascent is also the responsibility of the same composer. That's fantastic. Max von Meiling from May 2006. 8 out of 10. Do you recall your first lie? It's one of my semi-serious habits to refer to certain filmmakers' individual films as their new wave film. This is because a filmmaker who had been known for directing moody black and white pieces heavy on the philosophy will suddenly produce a film in colour with eclairage, cinematically self-conscious, dealing with love and relationships of a quiet, bluesy, jazz or pop music track, noise in a very contemporary milieu, one that takes material sufficiency for granted. One could look at the careers of certain classic Japanese directors, Kon Ishikawa, for example, and suddenly see a film like Fudatabi to Love Again, 1971, and exclaim, ah, his new wave film. That's an interesting perspective. You wouldn't have said that Goddard going to colour was him going new wave, would you? Maybe you would. Or Truffaut. People who were new wave from the get-go. I tend to think of new wave in the 60s as being very black and white oriented. Anyway, that's just me. Of course, within the very limited oeuvre of Louisa Shepitko, it may be a little extreme to declare T-Y-I... Oh, that's it. The film in Russian, that's the title. T-Y-I-Y-I, a new wave film, but even within her run of work, it stands out as sort of the odd man. You and Me, we sort of all of that, also has the distinction of linking Shepitko's work to Kieslowski, making her a link between the free Slavic master filmmakers of the late 20th century, as some of her other work links up with Tarkovsky, particularly The Ascent. You and Me concerns two damaged men, both surgeons, one better, the other lost. Though similar, their cases are very distinct. The effects on their personalities are different, their self-therapies are different, and most importantly, their cures are different. One man is a brilliant neurosurgeon, widely regarded as a genius, who has taken a glamorous but useless job as physician in the Soviet embassy in Stockholm. His relationship with a Swedish woman has broken up and he has returned to the SU. There is a Soviet versus Swede in an ice hockey game, and Shepitko shows a very casual acceptance of Europe, Beatles-type music in Siberia, and this was very prophetic. Soviet man is, above all, a European. He returns to Russia and reconnects with his colleague, of whom he has an intimacy which can best be described as Lawrencean. Interesting. The colleague is attracted to his friend's ex-wife and struggles against his instincts. She had been his girlfriend before she married his best friend, and his bitterness dominates whatever emotions he has that draw him to her. Every time he finds himself drawn closer to her, he hardens and draws away, sometimes violently. His problem manifests itself as an ever-thickening shell around his emotions. The neurosurgeon seems to be undergoing a total mental breakdown. His way of self-medicating is to run away. In a train station, he sees a man running for a train and impulsively joins him and jumps on the train. Just as impulsively, he gets off the train at a country station where a beautiful woman in the doorway of a boxcar beckons him. The freight train is pulling out of the station and he jumps into the boxcar. Turns out that she is traveling with a whole group of people. They're going to a huge works project in the middle of nowhere, Siberia. They're working on this huge project, which consists of huge terraces cut into the side of a granite mountain. His day is a bit and is about to leave when he finds a woman who has blown her top and cut her veins because of her feckless blonde boyfriend. He calms her down and repairs what he can. He sees a Red Cross on a medical evacuation plane, a large An-2 biplane on pontoons, and it clicks on his consciousness. He becomes a doctor in this obscure and isolated region. One day, there in his waiting room, is a young woman who stands out as if a light was not only shining on her, but from her. With her head wrapped in a coif-like bandage, she resembles a living icon. It certainly is true. With the vein cutter returned, the doctor tries to strike up some sort of relationship. She senses that he wants to use gratitude as the basis and at first rejects him. He asks her if she remembers the first time she lied. She says she doesn't, and he says neither does he. Though as a doctor he has to lie all of the time, especially to terminal patients. But that day he, for the first time, told the truth when he should have told a lie. A young girl came in with a brain thrombosis and he had to tell her that she wouldn't live 6 months. The operation she needs hasn't been invented yet. For some reason he had to tell her. He had to be honest. One of the things he says to the vein cutter is that somebody needs us. That is true for you and I. Any hookup between him and her is problematic, however. He walks away and sees the forlorn young woman barely able to stand in her grief. He realizes that this is the person on this planet who needs him, and his long and winding road of life has led him to her. Life become clear to him in an instant. He is the only one qualified to operate. For his friend finally coming to grips with his feelings, there is a spectacular coup de theatre scene set in a circus ring, and accepting love is the cure which allows him to see his life clearly. If the film was a weakness, it's the girlfriend. She seems to have a bad case of the Mirelle Darks, wearing the same sub-Givenchy outfit of black patterned leather and bright yellow beret. Though the actress is listed as being in her early 30s, she looks like one of the older women who, in the 60s, look so ridiculous trying to dress like the young. It is strange that, coming from the director of the most thorough and detailed portrait of a woman's inner life, the woman character is a virtual cipher. I wonder what he means by which of Shepitko's films he's referring to in that last sentence there. Anyway, that review is very sufficient. Thank you so much, Max von Meyerling. I hope you are well. And thanks to all of you. Have a fantastic day, night, wherever you are, however you are.